What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics ever, something that completely changed my life a few years ago when I started doing it, and that is intermittent fasting. If you're someone who's trying to lose weight and you're wondering if intermittent fasting, this thing that you keep hearing about probably all over the place, is going to be effective to help you do that, and the answer is probably yes. It certainly was for me, and I'll put up a before and after here on the screen for you to see of my before and after from back in 2017, 2018, when I finally started using intermittent fasting as I was trying to lose about 30 pounds. And what was amazing about intermittent fasting when I started doing it is that I had lost weight many times in the past, but I had never been able to get down to a point where I was really truly as lean and had the aesthetic that I really truly wanted to have. And intermittent fasting was that thing that finally allowed me the control and the ease of losing enough weight and enough body fat to really be super proud of the way that I look in this before and after picture. So I am super excited to share with you guys here in a series of videos really what intermittent fasting is, how to do it properly, how you can leverage intermittent fasting to not just lose weight, but to lose weight in an easier way than you've probably done it before. And then even better than that, once you actually lose the weight and once you actually have a physique that you're really proud of, intermittent fasting is one of those things that you can do for the rest of your life that actually makes maintaining your results that much easier. I actually can't even imagine myself going back to not intermittent fasting. I will probably do some form of intermittent fasting for the rest of my life just because I enjoy it that much, and it really helps me to maintain my physique and to be really happy with where I'm at. Now, before we dive into a bunch of stuff here, if you want the best advice on health, fitness, weight loss, all that stuff, make sure that you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button just down and to the right of this video, and hit the bell button as well so that you get notified when we do future videos. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in to answer some questions for you out there who are thinking about using intermittent fasting for weight loss specifically. Is it effective? What is intermittent fasting? How do I do it properly? Is it right for you specifically? Because intermittent fasting is not right for everybody. So let's start off with what is intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting, or fasting in general, is where you go for a period of time without eating any calories at all. So the reason that breakfast as a meal is named break fast, right? Breakfast, is because you're waking up in a fasted state and you are breaking your fast. You've been fasting basically all night through your sleep. And that's just what a fast is. You're just going for a period of time without consuming any real amount of calories, okay? So the most common form of intermittent fasting is called 16/8 intermittent fasting. And that's the one that I do on a daily basis most of the time. And basically what that means is you're going to have a fasting period each day where you go for roughly 16 hours of your 24-hour period of your day without taking in any calories. And then you have an 8-hour period called a feeding window where you consume your calories, whether it's drinking calories or eating calories. You consume all of your calories during that feeding window of about 8 hours, and you fast during the other 16 hours of the day. Like I said, that's the most common form of intermittent fasting, probably the easiest one for people to sort of slide into and dip their toes in the water when it comes to intermittent fasting and get great results. Now, why would you do something like intermittent fasting? What are the benefits of doing intermittent fasting, specifically when it comes to something like weight loss? When it comes to weight loss, your goal in order to lose weight, in order to lose body fat, is to get yourself into a calorie deficit where you're burning more calories than you're eating on a daily basis. So you're burning more calories than you're eating, and you end up with this calorie deficit. And that calorie deficit allows you to lose body weight and body fat, okay? Typically, the traditional way of losing weight is to consume less calories and move more by exercising more. And the way a lot of people used to do this is they would just eat less food at all of their meals. So they would eat 3 or 4 or 5 meals a day, and they might have some snacks in there too. So really, you would be consuming some kind of calories anywhere from 5 to 7 times a day when you include all of your meals and all of your snacks. Well, the problem with that is the average person, when they're trying to lose weight, probably struggles with portion control. If you're eating anywhere from 4 to 7 times a day, trying to eat less at each of those meals can be hard for the average person when they're trying to practice self-control, and it's not necessarily coming easy to them. So the beautiful thing about intermittent fasting is that instead of eating 4 to 7 times a day between your meals and your snacks, you're eating fewer times of the day and you're fasting for part of the day. And the easy thing about that is that for a lot of people, especially myself, it's a lot easier to just skip a meal completely, especially if you're a busy person, than it is to try to eat less at your snacks or less at your meals, which might just leave you feeling unfulfilled. This kind of brings me into a question that I get a lot, which is intermittent fasting right for me? Intermittent fasting is by nature a stress on your body. Anytime you're going to go for a period of time where you're intentionally not consuming any calories, then your body is going to view that as a kind of stress. Now, is it a bad stress? Absolutely not. It's a good stress, and it's a good stress that causes some really good things to happen within our body. Now, that being said, if you are someone who is already under a lot of stress, you're already under a lot of emotional stress, or you're under a lot of mental stress, maybe you're a student who's very busy, maybe you're a business owner, or you're a stay-at-home mom and you have a lot of kids, you just have a lot on your plate. If you're someone who has a lot of stress and a lot on your plate, then adding the stress of intermittent fasting may or may not be a good thing for you. It's something you have to try out on your own, but for some people who are already under a lot of stress, the added stress of intermittent fasting can work against them. Now, that's not everybody, but it's something to keep in mind. If you're someone who has a history of eating disorders, meaning you are someone who has really struggled with dieting, really struggled with body image, really struggled with a lot of things, and you tend to fall into extremes, you go to extreme calorie restriction where you're just not getting enough nutrients, you're not eating enough, or you really become obsessive around these things, then intermittent fasting may be something that you need to be cautious about doing. Not to say that you can't do it and be successful with it, but these are just a few things that you want to take into consideration when you're thinking about adding intermittent fasting to your daily lifestyle, because if you have some of these other things going on, it could complicate things and it could become something that is a detriment to you instead of a net benefit. One of the things that is great about intermittent fasting is that you don't have to worry about cooking as many meals and meal prepping as much food and grocery shopping for as much food. So if you're someone who is really busy, maybe you're a business owner or you are a stay-at-home mom and you're running around with kids, or you're running kids from practice to school and doing all these things. If you have a really busy life, then intermittent fasting can be great for you because you're so busy, you don't want to stop and take the time to think about eating an extra meal or eating a snack just because you feel like you have to. The beauty of intermittent fasting is that you can kind of just say, you know what, I'm busy, I'm not all that hungry, I don't want to bother myself with having to stop and eat. And so if you're a busy person, or if you sometimes feel bothered with the idea of stopping to eat, then intermittent fasting is probably going to be great for you because you'll be able to simplify your life. You won't have to worry about meal prepping as much. You won't have to worry about grocery shopping for as much food. You'll save money on food. If all of those things are attractive to you, then intermittent fasting may be great for you, and it may be a fantastic way for you to eliminate calories from your day and slide into a really good calorie deficit using intermittent fasting in kind of a sneaky way, which is the great thing about intermittent fasting. It's a very easy way to just eliminate calories from your day, putting you into a great calorie deficit without having to feel unfulfilled at the meals that you are eating. So how would I go about incorporating 16-8 intermittent fasting into my daily lifestyle? Should I do it daily, et cetera, et cetera? When you go to think about adding intermittent fasting into your life, specifically for weight loss, what you're gonna do is you wanna define what is my schedule going to look like? When am I going to fast and when am I going to eat? The most common schedule probably for 16-8 fasting is going to be where you eat from, say, noon to 8 p.m. So you might start with lunch around noon, and then you might have a snack sometime between lunch and dinner, and then you might have dinner and finish up eating around 8 p.m. And then you would fast from 8 p.m. through until noon the next day, So your feeding window ends up being from noon to 8 p.m. and then your fasting window ends up being from 8 p.m. through until noon the next day. So 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of feeding. And essentially what you're doing here is you're just eliminating a meal, or maybe a meal and a snack, from your daily calorie intake, right? So most people, when they first start off intermittent fasting, they will just skip breakfast and skip any mid-morning snack, and they'll just start with lunch. Or some people will start with a late morning snack and then have a later lunch. That's the most common way to jump into intermittent fasting, and that's more or less what I do on a daily basis. So I usually finish up dinner, or if I do have a post-dinner snack, I finish all of that up by about 8 p.m. every night, and I fast from 8 p.m. through to noon. If I'm having a really busy day, I may not eat until 1 or 2, and I might even have a little bit of a shorter feeding window. But generally speaking, that's the schedule schedule that I follow. And what's amazing about that is from a weight loss perspective, you've just eliminated a meal or maybe even a meal and a snack from your daily calories. And it's not that you're having to eat less at that breakfast or that snack that you already eliminated, and those meals left you feeling unfulfilled and starving and counting the minutes until you get to lunch and then your snack and then dinner. With intermittent fasting, you're just eliminating them completely, right? And by eliminating them completely and then maybe staying busy throughout the earlier part of the day, you're able to not really miss those calories as much. And it's an easy, cool way to eliminate those calories, get yourself into a nice calorie deficit, and really force your body into burning more body fat, which is another awesome benefit of intermittent fasting. By not eating breakfast, when you wake up, you're fasted, you haven't had anything to eat for several hours, and skipping breakfast and skipping that mid-morning snack, your body doesn't have any other fuel. And so it has to burn body fat during those last few hours of the fast, which is awesome. That's one of the reasons why it is so good for weight loss. Now, if you're in maintenance, let's say you already got to your weight loss goal and you have the ideal physique that you want, you could be like me and you could continue intermittent fasting even after you reach your goal, because once you slide into maintenance and you start eating more calories on a daily basis so you're not losing weight anymore, then intermittent fasting can be really fun. If you're like me and you fall on the same schedule as I am, you're still skipping breakfast and that, mid-morning snack, and you're just starting with lunch and maybe a snack and then dinner. But now that lunch and that dinner and that snack can be bigger meals. It can almost feel like you're feasting a little bit when you get to those meals, because you're still skipping those earlier calories in the day. But instead, when we're in maintenance, we're taking those calories and we're adding them back in to our feeding window. So we really get to feel like we get to eat a lot of food and feel full and enjoy ourselves more so when we're intermittent fasting and maintenance. So intermittent fasting can be great for weight loss, and it can be amazing for maintaining the results that you achieved when you were intermittent fasting for weight loss. That's just kind of a little primer on what intermittent fasting is, who's it really for, who's it maybe not for, and what's the most common type of intermittent fasting, what does a typical intermittent fasting schedule look like for someone who wants to start off, and how to sort of figure out how to get started. So if you're considering getting started with intermittent fasting and you're thinking, I want to lose weight, I want to try using intermittent fasting to do that, and you're thinking, how can I eliminate some calories from my day with intermittent fasting? Then the first thing you want to do is you simply want to define your feeding window and your fasting window and what that schedule is going to look like. So if you want to be like me and you want to skip breakfast, then you would just say, okay, I'm going to start eating at noon and I'm going to stop eating at 8 p.m. Or maybe you want to push it a little further and move your window back. Maybe you're a little bit of a night owl. You could start eating at 2 p.m. and you could stop eating at 10 p.m. And you could fast from 10 p.m. through till 2 p.m. the next day. You can move that window up and down, back and forth as much as you need to make it fit your specific schedule. Or you might be someone who really likes to eat breakfast in the morning, and maybe you still want to wake up and eat breakfast in the morning, but maybe you want to skip your dinner. So there's a lot of flexibility here. You can move that feeding window up to the first part of your day, so you're eating breakfast and maybe a snack in between breakfast and lunch, and then eating lunch, and then you start fasting after lunch, or you could skip breakfast and eat lunch and a snack and dinner. But just choose whichever makes the most sense for you. Figure out what those times are going to be for your fasting windows and your feeding windows to start and end, and then you're ready to rock. Now, the second step you want to figure out is, what am I going to have during my fasting window? So if you're like me and you're going to skip breakfast, then you need to figure out what are you going to have after you wake up, between the time that you wake up and the time that you end your fast. So you're not going to be taking in any appreciable amount of calories during that time, because our goal is to keep our body burning fat for fuel during that fasting period between the time that we wake up and the time that we do break our fast around lunch, if you're following the same schedule that I am. So we want to drink a lot of water, or any other real calorie-free beverage is ideal. Now, there'll be a lot of people out there on the internet that will debate whether you should have any artificial sweeteners or really anything that might add even a trivial amount of calories to your beverages. And what I've found in experience is, I'm not going to jump into all the science and get into a huge debate with people here, but I'll just tell you that in my experience personally, and in my experience coaching a lot of people with intermittent fasting for the purpose of weight loss, generally speaking, as long as you're drinking a lot of water and as long as your beverages are truly calorie-free or have extremely low amounts of calories, I'm talking 5 to 10 calories per 16 to 32 ounces. If you're using some very low calorie water flavorings, you're typically going to be okay, because that 5 or 10 calories that you might be adding in for a water flavoring is not going to delete your calorie deficit that you're creating by eliminating an entire meal or a meal and a snack, okay? So you want to stick to calorie-free beverages. Now, that might be lots of water. It could be plain water. If you're like me, I don't like plain water. And so I put very, very low calorie calorie water flavorings into my water. If you like coffee, you can have tea. You could be like more of a purist, a fasting purist, and you could have that coffee black or your tea black. Or you could be like me, and I add in a little bit of stevia powder to my coffee sometimes just to give it some sweetness. Stevia is an all-natural calorie-free sweetener. Or sometimes I'll use some very, very low calorie coffee flavorings that will add maybe 5 or 10 calories to my coffee. But again, that's not enough to delete my calorie deficit that I'm getting from eliminating that meal. That's what you want to do first. Figure out and have a plan for what am I going to eat, or not what am I going to eat, what am I going to drink during my fasting window to sort of help me stay hydrated and keep me from feeling super hungry, especially in the beginning when you're first starting out fasting. Because when you're just starting out fasting in your first couple of weeks, your body is probably going to drive some hunger hormones up more than it will later when you're used to fasting. And so you might experience more hunger in the beginning. That's completely normal. What I tell people is when you start feeling hungry toward the end of your fast, just understand that that feeling of hunger is your body's way of telling you that it's burning fat. Even though you may really feel driven to eat or drink calories when you start to feel that hunger welling up inside, just understand that that's a positive thing. That is your body sending you a signal to say that it is burning fat, and that's what you want to do if you're doing intermittent fasting for weight loss. So I like to just embrace that feeling, drink more water, drink more of a calorie-free beverage to kind of stave off that hunger to get to the end of my fast, okay? So step 1, define your fasting and feeding window times to kind of define your schedule. Step 2, define what you want to actually drink during your fast. And then step 3, you want to figure out and have a plan for what you're going to eat during your feeding window. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be planned out to the bite, to the calorie and all of that stuff. But you do want to have some kind of an idea for what you're going to eat, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to get to the end of your fasting window, be completely unprepared, especially the first day or two when you're fasting, be ravenously hungry because you're not used to fasting, and then make a bad decision by running through a fast food drive-through or going into a gas station and just getting a bunch of junk food because you're super hungry and maybe you're having a blood sugar low or something like that. So be prepared. Think about what you want to eat when you end your fasting window. If you're going to go out to eat for lunch, know where you're going to go and know what healthy option that you're going to get. My recommendation would be to try to bring your lunch or have healthy food and snacks prepared so that when you get ready to end your fasting window and enter your feeding window for the first few days that you're intermittent fasting, you want to be prepared and have those options available so that you don't do something that you're going to regret and it's going to undo all the benefits that you just did by fasting for the first time. Okay, so step 1, define your fasting and your feeding windows. Step 2, define and figure out what you're going to drink during your fast, and then have a plan for what you're going to eat during your feeding window so you're prepared and you don't get caught ravenously hungry and just wanting to eat everything in sight and then undo all the work that you just did. So guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Like I said, I'm going to do a series of videos about intermittent fasting and about how to really get the most out of it, because there's so much to talk about when it comes to intermittent fasting. There's so many good things about it that I'm not even able to touch on. If I did, this video could be 3 hours long. If I talk about all the amazing benefits and all of the different ways to intermittent fast, there's so many different kinds of intermittent fasting and longer fasts and shorter fasts and water fasts and just so much fasting knowledge out there that you can learn and to really help you dial in a physique that you're really proud of, like I was proud of in the before and after picture that I put up a few times here. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now. But again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the like button on this video and hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I release the next video in this series. And I'm gonna be bringing a lot more of my own knowledge and experience about intermittent fasting in a few videos in this series. And I'm really trying to make these videos not super sciencey, not super hard to digest. I'm really just trying to make these videos very simple, very down to earth, very easily digestible, so that you can just know what you need to know to go out and intermittent fast and get great results without being bogged down by all the sciencey stuff that a lot of other channels are going to talk about. If you want to know all the science behind intermittent fasting and you want to know, get really, really deep in the woods, there are tons of channels out there that are going to do that. I like to just keep things simple, keep them easy to implement, and not waste all that time debating, with a lot of the people out there on the internet about the finer points of fasting. I just like to get results, do what I need to get good results, and leave the rest to everybody else to debate on the internet. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy. Bye-bye.